Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Dhamma talk here with Empty Cloud Monastery. So today we're happy to have another episode of Shifu Simplicity's series on Bodhidharma's teachings. So we'll, as usual, I'll pass things over to Shifu Simplicity, and you're welcome to type in questions at any time. And at the end of the talk, I'll moderate the questions and read them out for Shifu Simplicity to answer. So please, whenever you're ready, Venerable, please go ahead and begin your talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Bante, for your invitation. This is the third talk in the series of the text, The Essence of Mahāyāna Practice by the Venerable Bodhidharma, the first Chinese patriarch who was an Indian great master who brought the Chan practice from China to India. And we have already discussed in this text, there are the main part of the text, there is it's about entering the Mahāyāna mind, which means the Mahāyāna mind here means how to be in touch with our own Buddha nature. So the first line of the text goes, to enter the great way, there are many paths, but essentially they are of two means, by principle and by practice. So entering the path here also is a synonym for becoming enlightened and be in harmony, be in accord with our own true nature, with Buddha nature, or with the absolute awareness. And last time, so the first is by principle, that is the first paragraph of this text. And last time we talked about that text where Bodhidharma teaches how we can directly, especially people with sharp roots of wisdom, how they can directly dwell and experience their own Buddha nature without much help, without much additional techniques. So that was the first chapter. And so when we are able to directly connect with our true self, we dwell in our awareness, our nature of awareness, then we can deepen that experience from a shallow enlightenment experience to deeper and deeper, all the way that is the same mind, that is the Buddha mind, and we deepen that experience all the way until we reach the full, complete enlightenment of a Buddha. So that is you can say that is the most direct way to practice, the most direct and the most also abstract way, because there's nothing much that can be talked about. The absolute awareness, the absolute level is beyond words, beyond concepts, and can only be experienced. And so for people who haven't experienced it yet, in this, after maybe they come in touch with some teachings, but they still need some help because the mind is clouded. Last time we heard about the metaphor of the dust and the space and the guests and the host. And so most people, we are inclined to observe the guests. That means all our emotions, our thoughts, and so on. Those are the guests, and we forget about the host. So our focus is shifted to the wrong thing, to the thing that is just an illusion. And the same as with the dust and the space. We look at the dust and we are not aware of the space. The dust is all fine thoughts, fine movements of our mind, and very tiny movements, like we pay attention to the sense impressions, and also we attach to some very subtle concepts in our mind. And all that is the dust, and we tend not to be aware of the space. So those are our problems, while we are not in touch with our true nature of awareness. And so when we are in this situation, there are still ways how we can practice, and those Bodhidharma describes this in the 4 practices. And the 4 practices are accepting adversity, adapting to conditions, seeking nothing, and acting in accordance with the Dharma. And so the first of those 4 is practice of accepting adversities. And here I will read the text. We come to the text now. What is the practice of accepting adversity? When suffering, a practitioner of the way should reflect. For innumerable kalpas, I have pursued the trivial instead of the essential, drifted through all spheres of existence, created much animosity and hatred, maligned and harmed others endlessly. Even though now I've done no wrong, I'm reaping the karmic consequences of past transgressions. It is something that neither the heavens nor people can impose upon me. Therefore, I should accept it willingly, without any resentment or objection. The sutra says, face hardships without distress. How? With thorough insight. With this understanding in mind, you are in accord with the principle, advancing on the way through the experience of adversity. This is called the practice of accepting adversities. So here the first, it's not by chance that the first of the 4 practices is the practice of accepting adversities. We all have adversities that is in our life. We have things that don't go our way. And as the Buddha said in the First Noble Truth, there's dukkha, there's suffering in life, and this adversity is dukkha. So nobody who is born can live without suffering. So the fact that we are born will inherently goes together with suffering. So although we are already practicing the Dharma, we definitely will encounter suffering in our lives. And now is the question how to deal with that suffering. What is our attitude to suffering? And most people are inclined to, when something doesn't go their way, when bad things happen in their lives, then or people don't treat them well, or whatever happens, some calamity happens, the first reaction is, why does this happen to me? And it shouldn't happen to me, and it's the other's fault. So when people, for example, don't treat us well, we immediately complain, we talk to others and tell them, oh, someone didn't treat me well and they shouldn't do that, and it's their mistake and they are bad, and I'm the poor victim, and I don't deserve this treatment. And by doing this, we rehearse the suffering every time we talk about it again and again. And that is very human that we do that. Immediately when something goes wrong, we go to another person and we tell them who wronged us, and that something bad happened, and we try to get the support of others who say, oh yeah, you are right, and the other person is bad, and you have such a bad luck. And so we seek for this type of comfort, and we seek for a kind of support on our side, that we are right and the other person is wrong. But that is the worldly attitude. That is not the attitude of a practitioner. And so Bodhidharma here teaches us how we can look at what is the attitude a practitioner can accept. And so here is when a practitioner is suffering, he should reflect. For innumerable kalpas, I have pursued the trivial instead of the essential. Kalpas here is a very long time. It's a measure word for a long time period. And that is here, it's very long time. And there's a saying in the sutra that one kalpa is calculated by when the average of a lifetime of a person is 10 years. And then every 100 years, the lifespan adds up to 1 year, all the way until 84,000. And then it goes back to then every 100 years it goes down by 1 year until it reaches again 10. So you can calculate, who is good at calculation can work it out. This is one kalpa. So this is an innumerable long time, and a very long time. Of course, we can still calculate it, but it's a very long time. And here it's one kalpa, but here it talks about countless kalpas. So here we can get a new dimension of what we talk about when we think in Buddhist terms. That we always talk about beginningless times. And people sometimes ask, when did samsara start? And we don't talk about that because that is beginningless times, that is so long ago that we cannot, it's out of our concept, that we cannot, we don't have numbers for that. So it's pointless to find the beginning. That's why in Buddhism we always say since beginningless times. And so here it just says since innumerable kalpas. And so what did we do within these innumerable kalpas? We have pursued the trivial instead of the essential. That is a bit free of a translation. And in Chinese it says, we have thrown away the root and grasped the branches. And so that is a bit, needs more explanation, but it's it's like a picture. When we think of a tree, what is solid and stable of the tree is the roots. The tree is firmly rooted in the earth, and what is vulnerable at the tree are the small branches in the periphery of the tree. So when the storm comes, those small branches, they shake, and maybe some of them get broken, they fall down. Or when a car runs against the tree, some branches will break off. So those branches are not the essence of the tree. When the branch is broken, and a new branch will grow out, and they can only grow because the tree has a root. So this is the picture that is telling us the branches, and here we translate it as the trivial things. The branches are all our worldly thinking, our worldly actions. Those are just trivial things. That is not the essence, but the root is the essence. The root is the most important part of the tree. So the root here stands for our Buddha nature, our nature of awareness. And this nature of awareness is not bound to time. It's not bound to impermanence. It has been there since we were born. It will be there after we die. It has no beginning and no end. It is just there. So we call it also true suchness, tatata, not suchness, that has no beginning, no end, and has no time, no concept of time or space, but you can say it's covering everything. And it's not confined to me or others. It goes beyond concepts of duality, of me and others, of one and many, of inside and outside, and also of old and new, long and short. So that is what here is called the roots. That is our Buddha nature. So for innumerable kalpas, so that means beginningless times, we haven't been dwelling in our Buddha nature. We have always looked outside. We have looked at the senses. We have been distracted all the time, distracted by the six senses, by what we see, hear, taste, smell, and the physical touch, and also our own thoughts and concepts. So we've always grasped at the branches of the tree, grasped at the things that are not stable, and we have lost ourselves in those branches, and we have forgotten about the roots. So, and because of that, we were distracted. We were not in accord with our true nature, and by doing that, we have our actions have created consequences, and so we have created karma, and that karma that is caused by ignorance, the ignorance that we take the branches for lasting, for everlasting. We take our body for real, and so this ignorance, we have our ego, we attach to our ego, and we have likes and dislikes, and so we create karma with our actions of body, speech, and mind. And the karma leads to rebirth. So we create karma, we get reborn again and again. So here it says, we have drifted through all spheres of existence. That means samsara. So because we have ignorance, we don't dwell in our Buddha nature, but we get attached to our self, our ego, and we cling to it. And so when we die, we still have this clinging to the self, and we create karma with our thoughts, actions, and words. And then a new physical body will be formed due to our karmic impacts. And this way we get recycled again and again in the cycle of birth and death. And that has been since beginningless times. And there has been so much suffering that we have been undergone. We have undergone in those countless lifetimes. We have been humans, we have been animals, we have been in hell, we have been in heavens, we have been devas, we have been ghosts. So all these realms of existence, we lived through them, not only once, but countless of times. And there is there's no purpose in that cycle of rebirth. It's a pointless cycle, and when we don't practice, we continue to go around and around and around again and again. Some people, especially Western people, that have newly discovered some facts that maybe some people in hypnosis can remember some scenes of their previous lives, and they ask themselves, so there must be a purpose. So they think the purpose is that there is a kind of evolution, that we learn something every lifetime, and that way we get wiser and wiser. But that is not correct. This cycle is we don't only go up, but that's why we call it the wheel. We go up and we go down again. So sometimes we are human, and maybe next life we are a bird, and then maybe another life we go to hell, or we are a ghost. and then we come up again as a human, and maybe we go and become a deva. So that is, there is no purpose in that rebirth. And this is only happening because we always attach to the trivial. We grasp the branches. We don't come back to what is our true nature, what is our Buddha nature, our nature of awareness. And so in that long circling in samsara, we have created much animosity and hatred. So we haven't been kind to everyone. There's people we don't like because they do something that doesn't benefit us. They do something we don't like. We have disadvantages. So we don't like those people, and we create hatred against other people, and not only hatred and animosity, we maligned and harmed others endlessly. So in this time, we can think about in our lifetime right now, so far, like everyone who is listening, we can think of moments when we maybe hurt someone in words, when we were angry, we were shouting at someone, or maybe you were even violent against someone. And so this is only in this very lifetime. Maybe we shouted at people, or we were even violent towards people. And if you say, well, no, I never, but then maybe we were also violent to animals. No, we as kids, a lot of kids, they even enjoy to kill some small bugs, or adults like killing mosquitoes. And so we have, and of course those animals, they don't like to be killed. When they get killed or they get harmed, then they suffer, and they also have a mind, and we create a bad relationship with those animals. So those animals, we create that karma, and they eventually they want to harm us back. They want revenge. And so this is only in this lifetime. How many animals, maybe how many mosquitoes have we killed, or cockroaches or rats or whatever. And also when we eat meat, we indirectly kill some animals. So there's a lot of harm that we have done in this lifetime. So when we think of in countless lifetimes, how much harm have we done to other people? How many words have we said that hurt people's feelings? How many and other things? And we have not only been the good and kind person that we are now. Maybe we were a criminal in some previous life. Maybe we were a murderer. And so we have had all kinds of roles. And so in so many lifetimes, we have harmed many other beings. So then we come to our life now. We face some adversity, and that adversity may be something, maybe some illness, some major illness. It may be a catastrophe, like we have so many recently in the news. There's so many bad news about floodings, about earthquakes, about storms, about other buildings collapsing, and there's always bad news about things happening, car accidents, political upheavals, and a lot of people actually die, not a natural death, very every day. And then there's adversities like illness, people get cancer, even young people die in car accidents, people have other kinds of diseases. And so there's a lot of suffering. Or there's the suffering of people treat us badly, our colleagues, our maybe even our partners in our relationships, or other or family members, or in classmates, or and so on. So there's a lot of also suffering caused by bad human relationships. So now when this happens to me, very naturally I would ask myself, so why does that happen to me? And when I learn about karma and I think about myself and I think, well, though now I have done no wrong, and I think of maybe this life, I haven't been a bad person this life, I haven't been a criminal this life, I haven't been a murderer. So why do people treat me so badly? And why does this happen to me? And so now we have to understand, we have this principle of cause and effect of karma. So I am reaping the karmic consequences of past transgressions. So whatever is happening to me in this life is the karmic consequence of something that I created, and either in this life or in previous lifetimes. That doesn't mean necessarily the last life before this one, but there are countless lifetimes that I have had the opportunity to harm other people. And so it's only natural that in this lifetime we also experience a kind of suffering. That is the karmic consequence of my karma that I created in previous lives. And so this is a very important understanding. When we understand about, we talk about karma and suffering, it's not about guilt. Yeah, and it's not about it's my fault. It's just about cause and effect. And very simplified, if I do something wholesome, I will reap something wholesome. If I do some harm, I will reap some harm. So that is very, of course, that's very much simplified. And there's a lot of karmic actions that when we say, okay, you have a lot to eat, maybe is that good or bad? You cannot always describe something as good or bad. But when you say to having a lot to eat, maybe you call it good. But if someone overeats and they get fat and sick, then maybe for them it wasn't so good that they had so much to eat. So it depends how we look at things. So basically you can say karma is neutral. It's just cause and effect. But because we make our decisions of what we like and what we don't like, and there's a lot of things we don't like, that means situations that make us suffer. So that we call that is a bad situation. So that's, and because that situation has a cause, then we can say that was a bad cause or bad karma that we created at some point in the past. It might be in this life, it might be in a previous lifetime. But what we need to understand is whatever is happening, nothing is happening by accident. We create the world with our own mind. So no matter what is happening is in the end is a creation of our own mind. Karma starts in the mind. We do an action, and before we do an action, there's a thought coming up, and the action is only magnifying the thought or the word. So at first there is a thought behind it. And that might be a very tiny thought, and that comes out in a certain way, in a certain uh, attitude, maybe also when we have conversations, maybe the words, when they're written down, they look okay, but maybe our tone is not right, and our tone expresses some disrespect towards the other person. And so yeah, that it all we everything we experience is the result of something that we have created in our mind. So it's about, not about that's my fault when something bad happens. It's about responsibility. That is the logic consequence of what I have created. And now is about I take the responsibility. That means I accept it. I accept the consequences of my own behavior. And there's no point in complaining because it's something that I created myself. I give an example. There was some story someone told here from our meditation center. He heard a friend called him and complained, and he said, "Oh, my girlfriend ran away with my best friend. And I'm very angry and I feel very hurt and I feel treated by two people at the same time. How can she do that? And that's really unfair and she's really mean." And the lay person who listened, he just in his mind, he smiled and he told the guy, "Oh, do you remember a few years ago how you got together with this girlfriend? You cheated another friend of yours with this girlfriend, and she was in a relationship and you got her out. You cheated him. And so that's how you got to this girlfriend. And a few years later, the same thing is happening to him. And that is some karmic, like I always say, the karmic boomerang that you throw out and that takes its turn and then it arrives back at you. So it's not about someone, there is someone who is judging you, but it's just a natural law of cause and effect. What you create, you will reap. So when we are at the end of we are reaping something that makes us suffer, it's we need to understand that this is the consequence of something that we created at some time in the past because we were ignorant, because we were always grasping the branches, we were following our greed, we were following our anger, our ignorance, and we did a lot of actions. And now the result is coming back to us. So that's the karmic principle, and so we cannot blame others for that. Of course, it doesn't mean that other people who do us wrong that they are free of they are not at fault. They create their own karma when they harm us, when they yell at us, or they are unfriendly, or they steal our stuff, or do something. They will reap their own karma at some point in the future. But we need to know, why is this happening to me? It's because I did something to that person in another time, at some time in the past. So I should understand. Therefore, it is something that neither the heavens nor other people can oppose upon me. Therefore, I should accept it willingly without any resentments or objection. And also in Chinese, it talks about not complaining. I shouldn't complain. And now it's so natural that people always complain and they say, "Oh, I'm facing these difficulties because society is not giving me this, or because society is such, or because my parents did something wrong when I was a child. My parents were not good parents, so that I have a problem now, it's my parents' fault." And that is a very common attitude, but that's not the Buddhist attitude. The Buddhist, if like for the example with the parents, maybe the parents were not wise, maybe they were not good parents, but why am I born with those within as a child of this couple? That's my karma, because I created a karmic relationship with those two people. It's in my past life or in one of my past lives. So it's my creation of that relationship that lets me karmically be born into that family. So it's not the family, the parents directly only want to harm me, but it's my karma that I've created, maybe a bad karmic relationship with those two people, that in turn they don't do it, they don't do their educational parenting very wisely or kindly. So, and when we understand this, so this is here, this is a very deep teaching, the principle of cause and effect and of the karmic consequences. We accept it, we see it as, okay, this is happening, this is my karma, I accept it, and I can try to repent my bad karma. There's also some formalities. We can repent the karma we have done in previous lives, and by repenting and making the vows to not repeat my mistakes again, for example, also by making the vows to take refuge in the three jewels, to follow the five shilas, the five precepts, and not to repeat my wrongdoings and my bad habits again and again. So by repenting and making sincerely, by really, it's like we are apologizing to people in our previous lives and in this life for our mindlessness, for our lack of awareness and our mistakes. And by doing that, we can first of all, we accept that it's our karma, and second is we can uh, loosen up the karmic impact. It will not totally go away, but the impact can lessen. And so here, once we accept it, we are not in this constant struggle with what is happening to me. We just accept it. Okay, this is happening. I make the most of what I can do right now. I practice in the way I can practice now, in the present moment. I don't need to complain. When I complain, I make the situation worse. And that complaining, that goes very deep. Even in my mind, I can train myself to detect any thoughts of complaining, any thoughts of blaming others. And those are, by having those thoughts, we continue the negative cycle. When we accept it, we stop our thoughts about that topic, and we are at ease with the situation. We just accept it. We let go of all our wishes. We are at ease. And in that moment, we can actually also feel that the suffering will get less. The moment you totally surrender to that suffering, to that situation, you totally accept, that moment the suffering will reduce, because you reduce the pressure on yourself. But if instead we try to talk about our suffering again and again, and we rehearse, and something bad happened to me, I tell one friend, and then I tell the next friend, I tell my family, and every time I tell it, you can feel it, you can experience it in yourself. The suffering in your feeling will come up the moment you talk about it, you rehearse that situation again and again, and you will not be at peace with it. So instead of complaining, we just accept it. We practice kshanti, endurance and tolerance, and accept our situation and move on. Accepting doesn't mean we say it's all our fault. It's not about fault. It's only about consequences. I take the responsibility for what I've done. When I break a pot of a friend, then it's my responsibility to replace it or to repay it. When I run into someone else's car and the car gets damaged, it's my responsibility to pay for the damage. And so and once it's done, it's done. Then there's no more, we move on, we let go. So it's very important when we practice repentance, we repent and we let go. We don't linger on also. And when we, for example, we We face the consequences of a mistake we have done this life. Let's, anything. Yeah, we treat someone badly and the person is maybe breaking up the relationship, and after the relationship is broken and we are by ourselves, we reflect about our behavior and we realize, oh, we really were not right, we treated the person badly, we want to come back to apologize, and the person has already moved on, they have already found someone else. Okay, that fair enough, that is the consequence of my wrongdoing, of my mistake, and I have to accept it. There's no need to cling on to the past and say, I want to have it back the way it was. Time is always flowing, everything is impermanent, so it moves on, and we can only design our next step from the present moment. So it continues, the sutra says, face hardships without distress. How? With thorough insight. And so this insight is the insight about the cause, the principle of cause and effect, about karma, and also what is most important is, again, that sentence, the insight that why are we creating this misery? Because we have grasped the branches and have forgotten about the roots. So once and that is the root problem of the whole thing. So once we return, we let go of the branches, we see those worldly things, we see all our concepts, all the worldly things, people, things, stuff in the world, situations, and also the senses. Everything is just a branch. That is not the core. That is not the important thing. Those are the trivial matters. No matter how much it feels so real to us, but all these things are illusory. Our self is just an illusion. Our self is empty. So when we attach to this, when that is our main mistake, we attach to something that is not real. And instead of attaching to the self, the wrong self, the ego, we should return to what is there, what is behind there, what is the ground of our being. And the ground of our being is our nature of awareness. Nature of awareness is empty, but there's still something. For example, the mind that is listening to the talk right now. That's just this listening without judging, without discriminating, without thinking, just this pure listening. And that is the hint to our true awareness. And so we can train ourselves instead of always hanging out with the trivial to come back and look inwards. Who is listening? Who is seeing? Yeah? And the answer is not just simple, okay, yeah, that's me. But when you get attached to the me, that's not the answer. That's not the real key. If you're interested, you can read the Surangama Sutra. In that sutra, the Buddha Ananda is asking this question: how can I find this true self? And there's a dialogue between Buddha and Ananda where it goes back and forth, and Ananda has a lot of suggestions where it could be, and the Buddha always says no. It's very interesting. So yeah, so that is the main point. When we learn to come back to our nature of awareness, or our Buddha nature, then all that suffering stops, because we see that the suffering is only the trivial things. Even our own person, what we think is our person, is something in the outside that is still a branch, a trivial thing, and that is not important. What is important is what is beyond there, what is beyond all concepts, and that is our Buddha nature, or our true nature. this mind that is listening to the talk right now without thinking. So when we get this experience, then we can see that even though there's some things not agreeable in our lives, but those are not important. And then the suffering, it stops, because we see our true nature is beyond birth and death. That is not subject to birth and death, not subject to beginning or end. So when we get this understanding, this realization, then we are free of suffering. So here, with this understanding in mind, you are in accord with the principle, advancing on the way through experience of adversity. So in this way, adversity can be our teacher. Because when we face adversity, suffering, we have the natural wish that the suffering may end. So the suffering can be a strong motivation for us to practice. So when we have everything goes smoothly, everything goes well, then people might think, so why should I practice? Everything is fine in my life. There's no need for me to change. So that is when people always have a lot of things going well, when they don't know what suffering is. But eventually, of course, everyone has the suffering of birth, illness, old age, and death. But some people's suffering in life is less due to their good karmic relations they created, and some people face more direct suffering. So the suffering can help us, can be a motivator for us to practice more deeply, to really put an effort in our practice. Because it's what is written in this chapter, we can read it once and say, okay, yes, I agree. But from understanding it conceptually to really internalizing it, there's still another way to go. So that means we should contemplate about that teaching again and again, so that it becomes part of our understanding, part of our daily thinking. And then we can be in accord with the way, in accord with our true nature, by practicing with adversity when we have this attitude. And that is called the practice of accepting adversity. So this is the first chapter for today, and now we still have time to answer questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Shifu. And we have, first off, welcome to all the friends who have joined in, especially Aya Vimlanyani, who's joining in remotely from her quarantine room, and also to all the other people who are joining in. And we have several questions. So first off, we have a question from Aya Soma. She asks, in Mahāyāna, is the definition of enlightenment becoming a Samma Sambuddha or an Arhat?
There's different levels of enlightenment. So the Samma Sambuddha is the complete, perfect enlightenment of the Buddha. That is the ultimate goal. But before that, there's, even though you can have, it's like in Japanese Zen, we call it Satori, enlightenment. I always say it's an enlightenment experience when you meditate and you have an experience of your true nature. That is also called enlightenment experience. But the big breakthrough is a thorough enlightenment, and that is when you overcome birth and death, and that is equal to the level of an arhat. So enlightenment, the word itself, it's a bit vague, and it incorporates all the different levels.
Okay, thank you. Then we have many questions from online. First off, Gita asks, is suchness the same as nibbana?
It depends. There's a different definition to in Nibbana or Nirvana, as we say in Mahayana, to the Theravada Nibbana. So the true suchness, tatata, is what in the same as the Mahayana definition of Nirvana. And also there are many synonyms for the same thing. Like we say, we can say, we always say Bodhi, which means enlightenment, and we always combine Bodhi Nirvana, or we say Buddha nature or Buddhahood, or we say true nature of awareness, and or the absolute reality. All these are synonyms for the same state of mind. That is the mind beyond duality, beyond also the duality of emptiness and existence, of the practitioner and the practice, and even beyond practice and emptiness. So that is what we call the absolute level. The absolute, we say, and we talk about 3 levels of truth: the worldly truth, or the conventional truth, is the truth on which the law of cause and effect is active. Then we talk the second level of truth as the truth of emptiness, and then there's a third layer of truth, and that is what we call middle way reality, or the absolute level, the absolute truth. So that is a little different in the Mahayana and the Theravada teachings.
And Gita also asks, in a state of suchness, there is no birth or death, the ending of all suffering?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy. Next, Nancy asks, can we share our suffering with a trusted teacher to gain clarity, or to let go of distraction to shorten our grasping to the branches? Could a trusted teacher bring us closer to the roots?
Yes. So it's all about motivation. You know, if we talk about our suffering because we seek some help, and we don't only talk about because we seek some comfort and some recognition, then of course we can come to our teacher and ask for help, to help in the practice.
Okay, and Michael asks, may we also say that we cycle through all the realms every day, every minute?
Yes, you can say that. So in every moment, you can say, actually, in the mind, the realms, the 6 realms are in our mind. So when let's say when you're very greedy, for example, you enter the realm of an animal, maybe. When you are very ethically correct and you have a very wholesome, positive, a very good thought, maybe you enter the realm of a deva. You can even enter the realm of a bodhisattva when you think of others, you want to relieve the suffering of others. That's the bodhisattva realm. Or when you have a thought, a very bad thought or action, and in the daytime, let's say you think of you want to kill somebody, even if you don't do it, you enter the hell realm. Or if you are very needy for something, maybe you enter the hungry ghost realm. So that, or you get angry, or you enter other realms. So that is possible. But every thought that if you enter the realm in your thought, every thought is creating a materialized rebirth at some point. So we need to be very careful also about our thought.
Okay, thank you. And next, Gita asks, the super mundane / bodhisattva way of facing difficulties in life is to see it as our teacher and use noble wisdom to understand?
Mm-hmm.
I think she's asking, is it correct to see the difficulties in life as our teachers?
Yeah, that would be an attitude. But I don't see what about the super mundane bodhisattva way. Anyway, so yeah, you can see suffering as difficulties as your teacher. But you need to have the Buddhist teaching to get the right attitude to learn from them.
Okay. And next, Mark asks, what is the right attitude towards mosquitoes for killing countless children in Africa?
We can we try to do our best as we live our own lives. That means there's countless of this kind of questions, because when we live, we cannot always totally avoid harming other beings by our way of living. That means when I drive a car, there may be mosquitoes flying in my windscreen, and I still drive the car. So we are not attached to the view that I need to live in a way that I don't harm any sentient being. I can only say for my personal way, I try to reduce the harm of sentient beings, and in, let's say, in our world's countries where we live, mosquitoes are not that dangerous, so we can try not to kill them. And we can try our best, but of course, when we kill, we still create karma. We need to be aware of that, and that's the way why when we are not practicing awareness, in our life we create involuntarily, we create karma for next rebirths when we don't practice. So when there's always the question about what to do when I have a plague of some insects in my house or so, and we try our best to get rid of those insects or rats or whatever without harming them. But sometimes there may be no other way but to use other means.
Okay, and next, Tran asks, how do you balance accepting adversity and the need to be vocal to social injustices in order to make our society better?
This is to be socially active is very difficult, because we have to look at our motivation. One is facing adversity. Here is about facing our own personal adversity. So we face our adversity with a mind of equanimity. And also when we look at the situation of the world, we need to have the same understanding, the same wisdom. So there is no, or let's say, why is the situation the way it is? It's because of the karma. So it's the same attitude. We have to understand there's karma, and why are we acting? Because we have compassion for beings that suffer, and we want to help to improve their suffering. But when we understand the roots, why they are suffering, or why there are certain situations the way they are, it's because of the karma the individuals created. That's why they are in that situation. But we have to be careful not to say, oh, that's all their karma, bad luck for them, and I enjoy my good life. But let's say, especially when you practice compassion for other beings, you can choose to do something to improve the situation. But we need to know that this is causes and conditions, and we can try our best, but we need to know to let go, to not get attached to our idea of it has to be a certain way and I want to have it my way, because it's not working that way. We have to see with wisdom when we want to be active, and definitely not with anger. So we have to be very careful about our motivation. Is it really wisdom, or is there anger and frustration involved? And then if so, we need to take care of our own state of mind first before we go and magnify it with a lot of activism.
Okay, and Dan has a question. They say this might be slightly off topic, but I read in Momonkan notions like meeting the ancestors face to face or having your eyebrows entwined with theirs. Is this literal?
No, not literal. That means meeting the ancestors face to face means that you have the same state of mind as the ancestors. That means you in this moment you can dwell on your true nature, and that is meeting your ancestors who are your ancestral teachers. Not your ancestors in your family, but in your ancestral teachers that are already enlightened. So once you reach the same level, you are kind of on the same mind with them. You realize the same mind.
Okay. And the last question for today, Anita asks, can you please speak to the qualities of the body, speech, and mind in reaching to the root of the tree?
When you reach, it's about the mind. When you reach to the root of the tree, you dwell in your true nature. Naturally, your actions of body, speech, and mind will be pure. And in Chinese, we call that Wu Wei. We have, we call that the non-conditioned dharmas. So your mind, your action of body, speech, and mind, whatever you do, what you think, you say, everything is very clear. And it's said out of compassion or out of wisdom. So your actions are pure. Maybe that's what you want to know. Whereas when you are not in your, you are not based on your root, you are based on your deluded mind, then your actions are deluded and they are not pure. So you create a lot of harm involuntarily, because your mind is not pure, your mind is deluded.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Venerable. And that's the end of our program for today. So please continue to join in our regular live streams, again, twice a day, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and occasionally programs on other days. So please keep an eye out for our upcoming events and join in as much as you can. So we'll end the program with 3 sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay, see you next